Hi everybody, it's Teresa Mealy. I am here with Mark Mealy.
Hi everybody.
We are here from Total Health and Wellness, and we are just going to talk odds and ends because we've had quite a little bit come up during the week. I get quite a few messages about different things, and so we just wanted to hit on a few things.
Yep, and I wanted to hit on something right up from the start. We appreciate all you guys coming on and watching the videos and stuff and all the feedback we get. I just want to ask you, if you don't mind, if you find value in what Teresa's doing, if you're reading her posts that she does daily, playing her Tuesday trivia, or if you're doing watching the videos she does, she puts a lot of time and a lot of effort into it and she does it for free. And there's nothing out of it except helping you guys. I'm with her at nighttime. She spends hours in the bed asking questions, reading books, watching videos and stuff, putting together content for you guys. So if you find value in the content and you enjoy what she's doing, if you would, please go on her Facebook page and just write a review for her. It just doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just go on there and say, hey, we appreciate what you're doing, something along the lines, and give her a little star rating and whatnot. You can do it on Google Reviews too, because we have a business rating on Google Reviews. You'll have to do a little searching around the internet and find that, but it's under the Google search engine.
Yep.
So we'd appreciate it so much if you guys would do that. It would help us out.
Hey Shayna! Yeah, it's funny he says in the bed because when we went to Low Carb San Diego, we met Ken Berry and Brian Linsky's and Gary Fettke and a few other people, but Mark even said to Ken Berry, I've lost my wife to you in bed. And he's like, what? And he said, well, I assume that she's listening, so I go to say something to her and she's got earphones in and she's just watching all your guys' videos all night long. So that's how I wind down. And it's also another way that I'm not looking at the screen and getting blue light, so it's not interfering with my melatonin production before bed. So there's just so much content online. It's almost overwhelming to me. I mean, sometimes I'll say to Mark, like, I don't want to go to the gym. I want to go home. I want to listen to a podcast. And, so there's just so much to learn. And so one thing that's come up for us a lot in the last couple weeks is cholesterol. So, hey, Lisa. So some people have been saying, KK's watching. So some people, always ask me about cholesterol. And so sometimes it makes me giggle like, oh yeah, cholesterol, I haven't thought about that. But I have, and so I just want you guys to rest assured that there's not been one study that links saturated fat to elevated cholesterol, number one. Number two is there's lots of talk now. First of all, you have to know where the cholesterol scare/scam came from. And that came from the fact that it is my trainer. I saw him on Facebook yesterday. It comes from the fact that there is a billion $1 billion industry of cholesterol medicines called statins that target cholesterol and LDL. So we have been fear-mongered into thinking, oh, cholesterol matters and LDL matters. I don't think so. All the studying that I have done, the research, the people I listen to, I think triglycerides and HDL matter more, and lipoprotein a matter more. I also think sugar markers matter a ton. I think inflammatory markers matter a lot. So just rest assured. I mean, you can't really think like we eat like this and our kids eat like this, but we've never really thought or talked about that. A book you need to read before you message me asking me if I'm worried about cholesterol, I need you to read A Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. So she was one of the presenters at Low Carb San Diego, and she's an investigative journalist. She's not even a medical person that has just sifted through all the literature. She also was a witness in Professor Noakes's trial.
Yeah.
So I also think, don't you think it's suspect or interesting that Aunt Sherry's watching and Karen, that a lot of these, like Professor Noakes in South Africa, Gary Fettke in Tasmania, and there was a Canadian doctor, they've all been taken to court and filed claims against the medical board. And when you go back, Fettke had 3 complaints against him, 2 of which he has found for sure has been the Dietitian Association. And I think Professor Noakes was dietitian in the statin industry.
And was there also not a cereal industry that was?
Yeah, Gary Fettke, the cereal industry, was behind. My thoughts are going all over the place, and we don't have a script. I have a few things. Love you too. I have a few things written down that I want to hit on, but things are becoming ramped up, in my opinion. I think there's been a significant cut in the market of plant-based. Most of us, like me included, before I started keto, was probably 70% fat, plant-based. And, you know, it's just a lot of wheat and bread and pastas and cereal bars and granola and, you know, yogurt and all this other stuff that is just, I think they're getting cut into their profits, the plant-based people. So now you have this Impossible Burger and Beyond Burgers just like flashed everywhere, and like Burger King picked it up, and I just think it's kind of weird.
I think it was a USDA 2010 study that was that they presented that was it showed basically where the majority of Americans' diets were, and we were basically 70% plant-based products, but we're supposed to be even more now. You know, it's just. But remember, plant-based includes gummy bears and everything sugar and
Twinkies.
Yeah, it's all plant-based.
Yep. So, you know, it's interesting, in 2015, so the USDA guidelines, food guidelines gets renewed every 5 years. And I think it was 2015, not 2010. They took off the maximum or minimum, they took off the maximum amount of fat you can have. So it's gone, but there wasn't a big, like, on the nightly news, like, hey, you can eat as much saturated fat. The USDA guidelines took it off. There's none of that. There's not going to be anyone coming out and saying, hey, we were wrong, hey, this or that. There's another doctor that I know in town, and he was like, oh, where'd you go? You went out of town? And I said, yeah, I went to the Low Carb San Diego. Well, you know, that's probably not going to be mainstream like hormones. And I just was like, well, you know, that the American Diabetes Association in 2019 made it part of their diet options for diabetic patients. So that's pretty mainstream to me.
Yeah.
So, you have anything to add to that?
Well, going back to the cholesterol, you know, we talked about me being a perfect example just a little bit ago, that I've always had high cholesterol. I've had high cholesterol for about 20 years now. A few months back, I had a medical scare, something that put me in the emergency room. Everything turned out to be fine, but the bottom line is when I went there, because of my symptoms, I ended up getting an angiogram. So the angiogram showed up. It was perfect. There was nothing. There was zero blockage. So Teresa asked the cardiologist, or the cardiologist who did the procedure on me, specifically, like, well, when you say, actually, you could probably put it in words better than me.
Yeah,
You're the one who did it.
you know, he's on testosterone for 5 years or 6 years. He's doing the keto diet, and at the time we weren't doing carnivore, so I didn't want to tell her any of that because then she'd just freak out. So I just said, you know, is it like 0% blockage, or is it like 20 and we're not going to fix it, you know, now? And she said, no, it was 0. So 0 blockage. It ended up being a lung infection, but he has a family history and all those other scary things, so.
Yeah. So anyway, bottom line is my cholesterol is high. My primary doctor wants to give me a statin. No, thank you. I don't need it.
Which again, to me, I had a few choice words when he got home and saying that he got prescribed a statin, but only because you're sitting there and you've given her a cardiac cath result that's 0% blockages in all arteries, but then all she sees on this side is, his cholesterol, and you have to get a statin. But you have, like, preventing what? 0 blockages.
Hi, Renee.
Hey, Renee. So I just don't understand. But see, it's an algorithm. Do you have high cholesterol? Yes or no? If yes, statin. That's your choice. And so Mark is getting ready to go for a CAC score, which is a coronary arterial calcium score. I had one a couple weeks ago. My score was 98, which puts me in moderate risk. No, not low. Yeah, moderate risk, which I was a little freaked out about, but then I was like, I have years and years of carbohydrate excess, like you wouldn't even believe. Eating every 2 hours. I never counted calories or carbs. I counted fat grams, which left you open to eating anything you wanted.
Yeah.
Like Twizzlers are fat-free. Jelly beans are fat-free.
Yeah.
So I just had all this sugar. I remember I was telling Mark this, had a little moment where I remember specifically, I was in Florida visiting the first year we moved to Missouri. His mom, when we go home, lets us use her car. I was in her car and I was leaving a friend's house, and I suddenly got anxiety in my butterflies in my belly and my chest, and I suddenly realized sugar causes heart disease, and I eat sugar like it's going out of style, like an addict. But at the time, I didn't understand food addiction was the same as like alcohol addiction. And I remember thinking that and suddenly being so scared, but I still couldn't change anything for quite a while. I couldn't change anything, honestly, until I got stable on hormones. That helped me a lot because I was like kooky up here. It was hard to think straight. That's so good you didn't say anything. There was like, you had very schooled face.
It's my newfound stoicism.
Or you must be married a long time. But it took me a while because, you know, when you're unbalanced in hormones, like and you're eating all that sugar, your anxiety is so off the charts high. It's just hard to think about anything else. So, but cholesterol is not a cause for heart disease. It's sugar and carbohydrates and insulin, I promise you. And there's never been a study showing saturated fat causes cholesterol. And LDL has gotten a bad rap. Think of LDL as like the firemen that show up to put your fire out. Are you gonna blame the firemen that are there putting the fire out for your fire? Just because they're there? Just because they're associated with fires? Because they're always at a fire? LDL is always at the place of plaque because it's there repairing things. You all know I love Jesus, and I cannot imagine that God designed our body for our liver to make 70% of cholesterol if it's going to kill us. It doesn't make sense to me. So just know that I'm assured of that, but you have to be assured of that. So there's places you can go on YouTube. There's Dr. Christian Assad, he's a cardiologist. There's Dr. Brett Scher, Scher. He quit his private practice cardiology in San Diego and is now one of the lead people at dietdoctor.com. There is Dr. Ali, A-L-I, who's a cardiologist. It was his podcast with Dr. Saladino I shared 2 Sundays ago. He talked an hour and a half about LDL and cholesterol and heart disease. There is, I know I'm missing one cardiologist.
It wasn't Dr. Fong, was it?
No. But then there's also a few engineers that are in this space because engineers figure out problems, right? They see a problem and they find a solution. So there's Ivor Cummins. He is the Fat Emperor on YouTube. There's Dr. Dave, he's not a doctor, he's an engineer. Dave Feldman. He has the cholesterolcode.com. There's Dr. David Diamond, who is a cholesterol doctor. I know there's one more, but anyway, there's tons of information. Hey, Beth.
That's plenty to get you started.
Plenty. And like I say, I can't even get through them all. And now that I'm doing this Low Carb USA certification, it takes some of my time away from other podcasts. But just know that we truly believe here that for most people, and I would say, in my brain, it's probably 90% of people in the world suffer from food addiction. Because if it was easy to stop eating M&Ms and Twinkies, everyone would just stop and not be overweight and not have diabetes and insulin resistance. It's the same thing for like smokers or alcoholics. Like I said on my Tuesday video, there's no smoker, not one that's like, still got it in the brain, that's smoking their cigarette thinking, wow, I must smell really good. These are really, I can afford these. This isn't doing any damage. Like, there's nobody like that. And I remember as a kid, my dad was a smoker. He still is a smoker. I would come to him as a kid, and you'd see those lungs in the book, the charred lungs, and I'd be like, Dad, please stop smoking. Look what's going to happen. So his kids are crying, and he has 2 girls. They're like asking him to stop. He watched my grandfather die from drowning in your own secretions from COPD and emphysema. So like, it's an addiction. And so if it was that easy, there wouldn't be addictions.
No, and my dad was the same way. His father passed away from because he was a smoker, and then my dad had the same thing in a nutshell. But with the addiction thing, understand too, like it's really tough, especially when you're talking about sugar, because it's tough for any addiction. But with sugar, you have armies. These food companies have armies of food scientists. They pay them a lot of money, and they put a lot of money into research and development, and they've mastered the art of coming up with just the right mixture of salt, sugar, and fat, combining all 3 together and coming up with something that just tastes so good it becomes almost irresistible to you. And once you're hooked on it, you're hooked. It's just like any other addiction. There's no difference.
Hey Shelly, hey Judy. Yeah, they say you can't eat just one potato chip. They make it that way. I heard one of the guys say there's 30 researchers and 2 doctors working at these big food companies 24/7. Like, they're never closed. And if that tells you also suspect, like, it's just its own business to try and get you addicted to. And then you have sabotagers, consciously and unconsciously. Sometimes it's your own mama. Like, I made your pie, honey, eat your pie. Why aren't you eating your pie? Are you sick? Do you not feel good? This is your favorite pie. And how are you supposed to pass up your favorite pie? I mean,
yeah, the social stuff, the work parties and stuff, or the the days. What did they just have?
Food days.
Food days. Yeah, that's a thing now. So you've got to deal with the food days where there's just all this junk food sitting there. We've seen pictures from like Dr. Tro of the medical staff, the doctor's rooms,
the doctor's lounge.
Yeah, they've just loaded with cookies and Coke and just junk food and.
Right, but like Right, so I was saying to Christina the other day, like, why wouldn't you bring a dozen of donuts? It's like $2. What do you think they're going to bring? Some cuts of filet mignon?
Yeah.
Meat and cheese?
The boys asked me yesterday. It's a good point because we were just talking about Ruby Tuesdays, and they bring you the little cheese biscuits or whatever, and the boys were like, "We miss those," and I was like, "Yeah, those did taste really good." I mean, obviously, but they were. I don't remember what exactly the whole gist of the conversation was, but I told them, I said, yeah, they would be better for you though if they would just make them out of cheese instead of being bread with a little bit of cheese on them. They're like, well, why don't they do that? And I said, well, because of cost. It costs them a lot more to produce dairy products than it does to throw together some enriched wheat flour and whatnot and make you a little biscuit. And it tastes just as good, if not better.
Right, and enriched flour, bleached flour is like cents, and almond flour is like $9 a thing when I used to get it all the time to bake stuff.
Yeah, so cost is huge.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking for profit and they're going to make things as cheaply as they can and they're going to make you addicted. So I don't want you feeling, and I know it from when I used to be addicted. I used to tell people, this is funny, I used to tell people, whenever we would have parties at our house in Florida, we had a lot of them because we had a pool. So every time it was a holiday, it was an excuse for food and brownies. And I would always have M&Ms. And I would say to people, the day I don't have M&Ms out, what would I say? Aliens abducted my body. So be wary. Well, that stuff, if you let it can be a birthday party, an event. Like, what are you guys planning right now for Labor Day coming up on Monday? Are you bringing your own food? Are you bringing things that you can share with other people that will be what you can eat? I mean, we need to start thinking about this, but I used to just feel such shame and like guilt and like, I'm a medical provider.
Apologies, we're having technical difficulties on the Facebook side. Yeah. We just lost it.
Let's just, well, that's weird.
That is weird.
So let me restart it.
Yeah, we're going to start Facebook back up. Bear with us for those of you who are going to be watching this on YouTube. We've got two different cameras going with two different social media platforms, and Teresa is rectifying Facebook as we speak, so.
I'll just say part 2. Never seems to work out well.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with our signal.
I think
in here.
Some people are trying to silence us.
All right.
Okay, part 2.
Part 2. Apologies, Facebook. We lost you for a second there.
Because I was bad-mouthing some things.
Yeah, maybe.
But I would eat M&Ms at these parties. I would eat M&Ms, cake, and then I would feel so guilty, right? So then it's like, tomorrow I'm not going to do any of that. But tomorrow I'm going through withdrawals now from the day before, M&Ms and cake and brownies and bread. So then I would fall back into the trap, plus there'd be leftovers. So then it was like shame and guilt again, like I can't freaking figure this out, and I'm 30 pounds overweight, so I would just go run more, and I would, and I taught aerobics, so anytime someone would call me to sub, I would be like, yes, and then I would do extra Pilates and extra running and just crazy.
Yeah, just get out and move more.
Yeah, move more, eat less, and then I would be like, tomorrow, but you're still going through withdrawals, and then by the time, I don't know, there's just a lot of shame and guilt, so don't think there's a problem with you. There's a problem with our system. Our system makes it so that it's a blame of yours. Like, oh, you're not undisciplined. Oh, you can't put the fork down. Oh, you can't push away from the table. Oh, you can't say no. No, they made it like this so it's difficult to say no and do all of those things. So they make it, or they act like, well, you can't count calories. You're not counting calories right. I mean, all you have to do is be in a calorie deficit. None of that is true. So I want you to be aware of addictions, and I also want you to be aware of the trap you can get into with moderation is fine. Everything in moderation. You would not tell a cocaine addict or an alcoholic to do their drug of choice in moderation. You just wouldn't. That would be dumb. So you wouldn't tell a sugar addict to just have one piece of cake. Let me tell you, I have never been a one piece of cake kind of girl. Yeah, ever.
Hard to stop.
Ever. I would eat 2 pieces, and then I would go and I would cut a sliver, and I'd stand over the cake and eat that, and then I'm like, oh, let's go just one more sliver. I mean, I'm talking a sliver, But by the time I'm done, I mean, literally a quarter of the cake is gone, you know? So there's nothing wrong with you. You need to look at this as an addiction. The other big thing with losing weight and being healthy in general is you've got to keep your blood sugar down, therefore your insulin down. Insulin wrecks a lot of things. It wreaks havoc on your whole system, every single one of your organs, your brain. Like you might think you have bipolar and schizophrenia, you just might be on sugar roller coasters. There's a doctor on Twitter, Childers, and she's a psychiatrist, and she has done wonderful studies and just taking kids off of things, and she's looked at people in the prison system, and like all of this could just be sugar issues and sugar roller coasters. So, hey Shelly. So just keep that in mind. The best way to figure out what your blood sugar is doing is to wear a continuous glucose monitor. We sell those here at the office. We don't accept insurance. It's cash, $120. You wear it for 2 weeks. It checks your blood sugar every 15 minutes. So you can literally see when you eat whatever you eat, exactly what your blood sugar does and exactly how long it takes to come back down. It's fascinating. Yeah. I get so excited when people do a glucose monitor and I get the results, and I'm sure I annoy Christina because I'm like, Christina, can you? And I'm walking around just looking at it. I just think it's fascinating. And I do have a patient, and she's just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want you to tell me that I can't eat something. That's a real thing. And also, I don't know, there's some real social things when we fix and heal people. Sometimes that is people's identity. So you would be surprised of the psychology that goes along with other parts of all of that.
Being sick is part of their, or whatever is being part of their identity.
Yep. Yeah. So, anyway, my mind's racing. So, but you can get a CGM here. I just had someone tell me, my so-and-so, my friend's endocrinologist said he has no idea how to get a glucose monitor. Are you kidding me? An endocrinologist should know how to get a glucose monitor. I'm sorry. And if you don't know, you just call the company that makes them and say, how do I get a glucose monitor? You did it, for heaven's sakes. He's the office manager. He did it. Called up and got him.
Yeah, it was fairly straightforward. It took me a day to set up the account and then had to place an order. That was it.
So we sell it for $120. You don't have to be a patient. You don't have to become a patient. If you only want the information, you pay $120. If you want to consult with me, it's a 30-minute consult for $150, and I can go over things. If you don't want to pay the consult, then you just get the graph emailed to you, your individual days, and you can see from there. I think there is absolutely no way. I think the glucose monitor is going to change the world when it comes to eating, because you honestly can't be any kind of provider. I don't care if you're a cardiologist, rocket scientist, or endocrinologist. You could not see the sugar spikes from the food you're telling these people to eat, even if they're diabetic, and continue to proclaim that that's the diet that needs to be had.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on the glucose monitor and how it works a little bit better, it makes it really easy because it takes a reading every 15 minutes automatically. You put the thing on, it sticks on your arm at the back of your tricep and deltoid area, and every 15 minutes it's automatically taking that reading. So when we put the chart out in front of you, you're going to see every 15 minutes. In addition, you're going to be writing into a food chart, a food and activity chart. Mm-hmm. So as you're eating meals, as you're doing activities, you're going to write that on a piece of paper that we'll give to you, and you'll be able to. It's just so much more effective to be able to track exactly what it is you're doing and the things you're eating and seeing what they're doing to your blood sugar.
Especially without pricking your finger. So every time you eat, I want you to take your blood sugar, ideally before 30, 60, 90 minutes, and some people even 2 hours after, because I want to see how long that tail off the insulin takes for some people. So that's 5 sticks every time you eat. So this is just way easier and way better.
Stays on for 14 days.
14 days.
14 days. And you can come in and get read as much as you want. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, at the end of the 14 days, we have a printout we can give that shows the entire length and everything that happened. It's
fascinating. It's tangible. It's black and white. There's no question. We did have a friend that went to Andy's and then checked her sugar, and so she got a lot. For those of you who aren't from Missouri, that's our custard place, and I was addicted to it for a bit, and I do not like ice cream. She got a large James brownie, and her blood sugar usually runs in the 80s, like 79, 80, and it was 155, which incidentally, in case you don't remember, my CGM of a banana was 155. So I could have had a large. She had a large.
Yes, she did.
And listen, I can finish the whole large. and then wish for a couple more bites. So a large, I could have had that instead of having my banana. So this is where I think it's really important too for people trying to lose weight. I don't need you eating tons of fruit because people misunderstand. Like your body doesn't know if you ate a banana or a Krispy Kreme donut or pasta. It doesn't know like, oh, this was her birthday. Let's not spike sugar because she's celebrating. It doesn't know that like, oh, she had a banana because she's having leg cramps and she needs the potassium. So let's not spike the sugar. Your pancreas and body doesn't know that. It's just responding to sugar. And so that is, that's where I keep harping. Like, I'm not trying to be mean to bananas because they're good, but I'm just saying they aren't healthy in terms of sugar, therefore in terms of insulin, therefore in terms of inflammation. So just be mindful, because I could have had an Andes large custard for the same amount of sugar effect that it had on my, the banana had on my sugar. So when people come to me and they're like, I'm eating quinoa, I'm eating sweet potatoes, I'm on a diet to lose weight, and I'm eating apples and bananas and oranges, half a cup of rice, this stuff is all just carbohydrates. And I would actually challenge anybody to come in here and buy a CGM and eat oatmeal. And if your sugar does not spike on oatmeal, I will give you a prize. I don't know what the prize would be. Maybe a bottle of zinc or something like that.
Yeah.
But I challenge anyone to come in or do a CGM anywhere and eat oatmeal and not have your sugar spike. At least the 150, 160, and if you're a diabetic, I bet it spikes to 170 to 200. I challenge anyone out there to do that. That would be fun. And I do love when people get CGMs from me. I kind of tell them to eat like, you know, healthy or crazy the first few days just to see what effects it has on your blood sugar. And then after that, eat the way I'm asking you to eat. You need sugar stable.
But what about those people who would come and they would say, well, yeah, I get that, but the difference is like the James Brownie versus a banana is the James Brownie doesn't have the nutrient density that the banana does. Like, how about all the potassium I get from my banana? Well, there's plenty of other foods that have potassium in it that don't cause a sugar spike like that.
I'm thinking, yeah, I'd rather have the James Brownie. The potassium in a banana is negligible. There's more potassium in an avocado. There's more vitamin C in zucchini than there is in an orange. And if you need potassium, take a capsule. That's not going to spike your sugar. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that's ridiculous.
Just saying, it's a thing.
It is. It is a thing. People eat a banana every day for, you know, leg cramps or whatever. So just be mindful that if you're trying to lose weight, you need to keep your sugar low. That is end of story. It cannot happen any other way.
Yeah, and then just one more thing on the banana. We're just beating up bananas like crazy today.
know.
But I don't know if they still do it, but in the military, for the guys who tended to be underweight, really skinny, we just used to give them bananas. And it's probably a pretty good reason why, to try and help them put weight on.
I remember in 8th grade eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day with my best friend. And then when we got to high school, I heard that they had, all the football players would eat peanut butter and jelly sandwich to gain weight.
I'm guessing it was probably the sugar and the jelly and the bread that was doing that, right?
Spikes your insulin. Insulin is anabolic, so insulin is fat storage. So, you know, there's lots of steroid users and bodybuilders not doing a good thing, but they give themselves insulin to build muscle.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind if that's what you're trying to do. And, you know, we love weight loss, but we also are talking about blood pressure and cholesterol, metabolic disorders. So for me, cholesterol and triglycerides is just sugar. It's sugar. It is not my steak and burger that I have every night. So let me see what else I had written down. Oh, smoothies is another big thing. People eat smoothies, so they drink smoothies. They, you know, they have a little bit of spinach, but then it's blueberries, strawberries, banana, mango, pear. I just had someone this week that did a pear.
Yeah, and I need something to mix my protein powder with
and
to
protein,
make it taste like edible.
Yeah, see, you have a little bit of spinach in there, and then you're just spiking your sugar with all that fruit, and then you've stripped whatever fiber is in there. But you can see from my banana and the boys' banana experiment, there's not enough fiber in there to slow that down. But when my kids ate Dippin' Dots and a funnel cake, their sugar went 30 points less than the banana because there's fat in there to slow it down. So just be careful. All I'm trying to help you guys understand is it doesn't matter how much you count your calories, how much you watch your calories, how much you exercise. If you eat a banana, it spikes. If you then 2 hours later, and then 2 hours later, and then 2 hours later, you're just not going to get anywhere, and you're just creating havoc inside. For me, blood pressure is sugar. Prostate health is sugar. Cholesterol is sugar. Anxiety and depression is sugar.
And getting back to talking about wanting to eat every 30 minutes. That goes back to the carbohydrates and the insulin. Insulin blocks the leptin. And leptin is the hormone of satiation. So when you get your leptin blocked by insulin, then it causes you to become hungry more often. So,
Right. And when you're obliterating your limbic system with all those carbs and eating constantly, your frontal lobe, your limbic system takes over, and your limbic system is just like, I want Doritos and blah, blah, blah. And your frontal lobe, who's like the police officer of your body's like, but it's so subdued because your limbic system is taking over that it's a real thing. Like, it's not just you not being disciplined. Hey, Judy, welcome back. The hello problem. So also, endocrinology world, I get patients all the time that are diabetics, and I tell them, this is how we're going to eat. Here's your CGM. Follow everything closely. And then they say, my endocrinologist said I have to eat every 2 hours. My dietitian said I need carbs to maintain my blood glucose. Well, they tell you that because they're giving you insulin. If you have insulin and no carbohydrates, you are going to face plant straight into the floor with hypoglycemia. So that's why they need you to keep up their carbs, so you're not dialing into their office every 15 minutes saying, I feel woozy and dizzy and my blood sugar's low, because they're seeing 200 patients a day in a big endocrinology clinic. That's why they tell you to eat carbs to maintain your blood glucose. Nobody says, how about we take sugar away and then we can take the insulin away.
Save a little money.
Right. We did a little experiment with the guy that reduced his insulin dose by 20 units 3 times a day. He was taking 80 units 3 times a day, plus a sliding scale immediate release insulin. And in just the 2-week time he worked with me, he reduced his insulin units by 20 3 times a day. And so we calculated, if insulin unit is 25 cents, we calculated that over a year, it's $23,000. $23,000. There are people that die because they can't afford their insulin. They die because they can't afford their insulin. What if someone said to you, you probably don't need insulin? And if you're a diabetic type 1, you could probably cut yours down by 75%.
Yeah, so it kind of refutes the argument about I can't afford to eat low carbohydrate, I can't afford to be eating, meat all the time and whatnot. Well,
it's true. Good point.
Yeah.
So just be careful with cholesterol and meat. Be careful with everything in moderation, because taking a slow poison versus a fast poison is still poison. Be careful with blood sugar swings and roller coasters. You're going to feel terrible. Like the boys I point over there because I keep it at my desk to show people because I think it's so profound. But the day they were at the back to school party, they ate all the normal, cake and cookies and ice cream. They went all the way up to like 275. And then through the night, they dropped down to 50, or 60, which is still in the range. But from 275 to 60, you're going to feel terrible. And you're going to feel hungry, and you're going to feel like you need to eat. You're going to feel a little irritable. It might be snippy to your partner. All this stuff is real things that happen.
They had all the above too.
Yep. This is another thing. So Mark and I aren't saying you necessarily have to eat the word keto, but we are saying that you have to minimize your carbohydrates, because that minimizes your sugar and minimizes your insulin spikes. But I had a friend who takes her boys to a group, a team sport, and one of the other mothers there told her kids that her mom is doing something very dangerous by eating keto because the brain needs glucose. So first of all, here's a little tip from a mama bear. Don't be telling my kids that I might die, okay, when you don't know what you're talking about. Secondly, your brain does need glucose, but your liver makes a fantastic glucose out of fat and protein that it stores in your body. So you will get glucose. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be alive right now.
Yeah, especially me.
Because we have been doing, so I still eat a salad every week. I order out for the office, which is funny because it's just me and Christina and the boys. But I have a salad every week. But Mark literally has probably 2 to 3 grams of carbs a day in his egg yolk. So you would for sure be dead.
Yeah, I'm primarily eating steak, hamburger, bacon, eggs. I have plenty of butter and salt on those. And then I'm also eating, we're eating some fish. Yeah. Buffalo. But anyway, the bottom line is, especially with me, I'm probably 95% pure carnivore, 5% other. And then a cheat meal for me, or a treat day for me, would be to go to like Huhat, which is like a local Mongolian barbecue here. Boys and I will go there, and I'll get some spiral zucchini pasta. on there, on the meats, and then maybe have some onions and some mushrooms on there as well. Very, very little vegetables. And the interesting thing about that with me is like I've been on carnivore so much, when I even eat something like that with just a little tiny bit of vegetables on it, I actually get hungry again in a very short amount of time. So it's just an interesting experiment I've done on my own. And because I'm so in tune now with my eating and how I feel, I notice that. Just that small amount of carbohydrates with me is enough for me to notice that I get hungry a lot quicker with a meal like that. Even though I'm absolutely gorged, I go up 3 times and I get a giant bowl.
Hi, Gina. Yeah, and in fact, he came home. So I fasted yesterday. He took the boys to the library for school stuff, and then it's their new thing. They go to Hoo Hot on Thursdays, and he came home, and I was in the bed listening to a podcast. But and it wasn't late, but I like to be in my bed and doing that stuff in my pajamas early. That's just how I am. But I went out to studying, right?
Listening to podcasts.
I am. But I went out to the kitchen. I'm like, where are you? Like, are you eating? And he said, I am actually.
Yep. Normally I would eat 1 meal a day. If I ate the steak, the eggs, the butter, and a few other things, and it was strictly carnivore, I would be full and I would be done until the next day. 1 meal a day. That's pretty much the way I followed. But I came back from gorging myself down there. I had thrown some vegetables and some other carbohydrates in there, and boom, I was hungry again within an hour. It wasn't a long time. It was within an hour. And I ate more. I ate again.
Yep. So call it whatever you want, but you have to reduce the sugar. And just remember, sugar is not just in Milky Way and Skittles and donuts and birthday cake. It is in fruit and pasta and bread and yogurt and pretzels and potato chips. I mean, all that stuff. And then when you go and talk to your provider, listen, you don't have to ask your provider to do keto. Absolutely, without a shred of doubt, you do not. Number one, they're not a nutrition expert. We do not do any nutrition training in nurse practitioner school, nursing school, DO, MD, PA, none of that, none. The nutrition training that you do get, especially doctors, is how to treat patients with IV food, like in the burn unit and stuff like that. It is not what we're talking about here. So they're not the right person to ask. It's like going to your neurosurgeon and asking him to do heart surgery on you. Okay, it's not the right person. Number two, they freak out because they think ketosis, nutritional ketosis, is the same as ketoacidosis, and it's not. And finally, you didn't go and ask them if you can make brownies for your kids, and if you can go to Sonic and McDonald's and wherever you go and pizza every week, and if you can make pasta every week and have Ho-Hos and Twinkies and Doritos. You never ask him that. So do not ask him. They freak out. I get patients all the time that are like, my doctor said I can't do keto. I'm like, did you just tell him it's meat and vegetables? Like it's actually just real food? Because if you just say, like I had a patient, I said this on Facebook, she went into her regular doctor, hadn't seen her in a while. The doctor came in, she said, wow, you've lost 40 pounds. All your markers are down. This is fantastic. What are you doing? This is the best I've seen you look ever. And she said, oh, I'm doing keto. Oh, that's dangerous. But if my patient would have said, yeah, I've just been watching what I ate and I cut out the sugar and the junk, not even carbs, I cut out the sugar and the junk, her doctor would have been like, that is fantastic. That's great. Keep that up. But the moment you say keto, it has a negative connotation for some reason, and you're just done for. And then they don't care why you're there. They're just going to tell you how dumb you are. That's what happens to my patients with hormones. I tell them to keep that a secret. Then nobody needs to know, unless you were the captain of the debate team and you have a certain book that I sell in the office memorized. So, anything else to add to that part?
No, I think you covered it.
Let's talk about intermittent fasting real quick, because I don't know how long we've been on here.
It's coming up on 40 minutes for...
Oh, the whole thing. Okay. So intermittent fasting is another easy way to help cut out junk. So Dr. Tro is somebody I follow on Twitter and Facebook. He is somebody that was 357 pounds as a resident. He kept going to his mentors like, what am I doing wrong? And they say, you have to eat low fat, you have to move more. He's like, I am. And he would go to the gym, and there's this 357 pound man lifting weights and eating lower fat. And finally they told him, you need bariatric surgery. And so he was like, that. And he's only in his 30s.
Yeah, he's young.
Yeah, like this can't be right. So he went, read Atkins, figured out this is weird, but kind of genius, and is now an athlete. And he weighs, I think, I don't know, he just put his lab work up today, but he probably weighs 180 pounds, and he runs 5Ks and blah, 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 okay? So one thing he says to people is if you do intermittent fasting and you take your feeding window down to like a 6-hour period, first of all, if you're eating 6 meals a day, which a lot of people do, eat 3 meals a day and a few snacks. If you take that down to 3 meals a day, you will be doing benefit. But if you take it down to a window of like 12 to 6, which I will tell you is difficult on a high carb diet because you're hungry all the time. And you're just gonna feel like you're starving and you're hungry, and that lady's like crazy because I'm starving and hungry. But once you get going on taking out the carbs and the sugar roller coasters and you're much more level, I can easily fast now for 48 hours if I wanted to. I routinely just do a few 24-hour fasts, and it's mainly just for convenience because like the boys are all gone when I get home and I just don't eat. So intermittent fasting is taking junk out and just having a 2 meal a day kind of food or timing. And then it is important, I think the best way to do it is not the way I'm doing it. I think the best way is to skip breakfast and then, eat breakfast and skip dinner, because I think eating before bed is what messes a lot of people up, okay? Sleep-wise. And, but I don't do that because I think it's easier to be sleeping and fasting and just add to that, you wake up at 6, you get ready, you leave for work, you get to work at 8, and you just extend the fast to 9, 10, 11, or then lunchtime. But I think physiologically wise and evolutionarily wise, it's better to do it the other way. But just cut out, so we eat anywhere from 12 to 6, 11 to 5.
I eat 1 meal a day. So my dinner meal is my meal, and I not gorge myself, but I eat till I'm heavily satiated at dinner time. And it's been fine with me. And then I work out in the morning time in a fasted state. So I'll eat at dinner like around 4, 5, 6 o'clock, whatever dinner time it is. And then I sleep, and then I get up in the morning, probably by 9:30, 10 a.m. I'm working out. Mm-hmm. And then after my workout, I've just got, the rest of the late morning and the early afternoon to get myself through until dinner time. And I'm just perfectly good with that. It's been working out great for me. I look great. I feel great. Probably better than I've ever felt in my life. And I'm absolutely perfectly pleased with my performance in the gym.
Yeah. And let's talk about that for a second, because we eat steak or burgers every night, and you can't overeat that. Like, you literally can't overeat that.
Yeah.
Unlike Publix cake is my favorite cake, or Doritos or Cheetos, you can always have that last little bit, and an hour later you can come back for that last little sliver.
Yeah.
So, but you can't do that with steak. There's no nutrients in the carb-laden food to click on leptin to say, hey, you're full. But when you're eating steak and that stuff, leptin is available, it's receptive, and it cuts that off.
And it will hard eating steak, hamburgers and stuff like that. Like, you're done. You're done, and then you're good. And the great thing about it too is with this kind of a low carbohydrate type way of eating is that you don't have to worry about like limiting yourself with the carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. You can just really eat until you're full.
Yep.
And then you're good to go for however long, whether you're doing intermittent fasting or whether you're still eating 3 meals a day. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, it makes it a lot easier to go until the next meal.
Yep. What was I just going to say about that too? I don't know. And we're eating carnivore. You don't have to do that, but it's just another option. And I do recommend that a lot of times for patients that have IBS and Crohn's and colitis and a lot of GI distress. It's also the Mac Daddy elimination diet. Some people do not tolerate vegetables, which I think Blake doesn't, one of our kids. Yeah. I think it inflames him, and I think that's the big difference lately.
Yeah, and then cooking them helps a little bit too with a lot of people. Well, it probably benefits everybody by cooking them with regards to digestion and absorption and whatnot, but yeah, Blake is sensitive to the vegetables.
Yep, and definitely carbs. But if you want to eat vegetables, fine. If some people are like, don't make me, I'm not going to make you. And I don't make people give up coffee unless you're having 5 teaspoons of sugar in it. But if you're having black coffee with a little bit of coconut milk, almond milk, or heavy whipping cream, I don't care. Have your coffee. But vegetables are not agreeable with everyone. And some of those oxalates and lectins really make fibromyalgia worse, Lyme disease worse, chronic fatigue worse. If you're in the bathroom pooping 10 times a day, you don't need all those vegetables. If you're doing carnivore, your poops get much smaller, less frequent, because there's not waste. Your body gets all of those nutrients and takes it all in, and there's just not a lot of waste.
Utilizes a lot more of the food that you eat.
Yeah, I mean, meat is a perfect food, and then egg yolk is also a perfect food. So you're getting all your nutrients. I just had lab work. I'll share them with you. But like my vitamin D, I haven't been taking for the last 6 months, and is 68. Yeah, you don't have to give up coffee. And my vitamin D is 68 on no supplements. And I want people around 70 at a minimum. The highest I ever was, well, I think I started at 49 vitamin D, but I've always been taking vitamin D. My B is good, but anyway, I'll share those with you. So to recap, Oh, and you know what else is interesting? Page 6 of the US guidelines, food dietary guidelines, page 6 says these food guidelines are recommendations for healthy people only. Okay?
That's a good point.
Do you know that 60% of the population is metabolically deranged, meaning they have prediabetes, if not diabetes? 60%. And page 6 on the guidelines says these guidelines are only for healthy people.
Doesn't apply to 60% of us then.
That seems like a minority it's available for.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. So, oh, do you want to tell people why when I get in the shower after you, the shower knob is turned all the way to cold?
Yeah, there's I've just recently started within like the last few days actually doing the hot cold shower thing, but I think based on the time and everything, we can probably save this for another discussion.
Okay.
Because
Hi Kim, hi Kaylee.
the other thing too is I've got a lot of anecdotal evidence and a lot of articles I've read and whatnot on the whole hot cold shower. Basically, it's turning the shower from being hot to cold, back and forth, alternating between the two while you're in there with it. And there's supposedly a slew of benefits, but we're still reading the literature, looking for the literature, and trying to figure out these benefits. And I'm also trying to see what it does for me, and we'll talk about it more later.
Yeah, and I have a video presentation I'm getting ready for you guys about all the studies that have been suppressed and used, but used in a different way than the results came out, like for saturated fat and low-fat diets and cholesterol, and it's just crazy, crazy stuff. So you have to do what's good for you. And I feel good on carnivore, so if someone came and said, hey, you're gonna kill yourself, you need to eat, I don't know, whatever, I would just be like, then I'm gonna die earlier, because I don't wanna go back to that. But if you don't want to do carnivore, do low carb. Don't call it keto. Do whatever helps you, but you have to get away from sugar, and that is carbs. Inherently, carbs are sugar, and inherently carbs raises sugar. That's all it is. So you have to keep your sugar nice and steady. So we appreciate you guys so much, and I get so much feedback from you guys, and many of you sometimes send me a private message. You don't want to put your stuff out there on Facebook, and that's fine, but I know that we're reaching a lot of people. There's people that reach out to me that aren't even my patients with success stories just by watching our videos. It's amazing.
We're on Instagram and Twitter as well as Facebook, and then of course we're doing this video as well on YouTube. Teresa has about, I don't know, probably a dozen videos on YouTube. And I do want to reiterate again, if you're watching this, you find value from what Teresa's doing, please on Facebook at a minimum leave us some sort of a rating. It really will helps us out. It gets the message out to people. Apart from the likes and the shares and the follows and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, those are great too, but it helps with the algorithms, and it helps when people come to Teresa's page and they see, you know, she's got, you know, a good rating with regards to the reviews and whatnot, and then the same thing with Google with their reviews too. If you want to go on, look up Teresa Mealy Total Health and Wellness LLC, give us a Google review for our business. We would appreciate that so much.
There's a lot of people in this space that are here because they have personal stories, like Dr. Tro and Ken Berry and all these people, and they're just trying to disseminate information to try and undo the wrongs that have been done since Ansel Keys came out with his 7-country study,
Yeah.
and just messed everything up, including economic and political whatever. So we're just trying to undo that. So I know not everyone can afford to see people like us and adventure out, but if you just watch our videos and make these changes, watch some of these other people I tell you about, you will make changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do yourself a lot of good. And yep.
Yep. So until next time, we appreciate you guys and appreciate you for watching. Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Good seeing everybody.